All right, great. We got another great podcast coming up today. We're going to be talking with Coach Melody from Cedar Creek High School. Phenomenal program, a place that has been known for having some fantastic athletes. Fantastic program. He took over there, I believe, 6 years ago now, right? 5, 6 years ago.
Yep.
And they've been in the state championship game. They've had some great runs. And he's done a fantastic job as head coach there. Coach, if you could kind of go into your coaching background and we'll dive into it from there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. I played quarterback at Union High School. I ended up getting recruited to go to Montclair State University, so I played 4 years there. And that's where I got my coaching start. So when I was done coaching, Coach Iancola, immediately said, we think you should get into coaching. We'd love to have you guys here. And obviously, I had a 5th year of school. So it was easy for me to say yes. I ended up working under Coach Josh Resto, who's actually at Ramapo High School now. Does a great job. I believe he calls the offense, but phenomenal coach. Learned a lot from him. I was an assistant wide receivers coach in my 5th year. And then after that, Coach G moved me to the defensive side and maybe the defensive backs coach, which at the time I wasn't thrilled about. Just because I didn't have much of a background in coaching defense. But when I look back on it, probably was the best thing for me as a coach and learning the other side, and especially for who I learned under in Coach Agresta, who did an unbelievable job, honestly taking me under his wing. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But then I became the wide receivers coach the next year. And after that, I went back to where I went to high school. I went to Union High School, and I was the offense coordinator and quarterbacks coach there for 6 years until 2019. And then in the COVID year, 2020, I got hired at Cedar Creek, and I've been the head coach there since.
Fantastic. And that, South Jersey football, that's one of the bigger programs. What was it like? That was probably a pretty big move, like making a move from up north to down there. What was that like for you?
Yeah, and if in hearing, where I coached, the 2 spots that I coached at are 2 spots that I played at. So there was so much familiarity with what I was doing. So, like I said, I played at Montclair State, and then I coached there, and I played at Union High School, and then I coached there. And when I made the move, I didn't just make a small move. I went 2 hours down the Parkway. Which was huge, and it was something that I had to think long and hard about in terms of, am I going to do it? But you look back on it, it's the best decision I ever made in my life. I wanted the experience as a head coach. I wanted to do it. I felt like I was ready. It's funny. When I took over the program, I gotta be honest with you, I was not too familiar, obviously, with Cedar Creek. And especially at that time, North Jersey, South Jersey football was completely separated. Really, we didn't pay much attention to each other. Now, obviously, with the state championship games, I think everyone has an eye as to what other teams are doing. But at that time, I didn't know much about Cedar Creek High School at all, and I knew that they were good. I knew that they had some really good players there. I wasn't familiar with their coaching staff, and when I got there, the guy that I followed, and he's a guy that I still have a great relationship with. His name's Tim Watson. He was essentially a legend there. And I didn't know that. I really did not know that I was following someone, with that big of an influence on a school. He was the first head coach in school history. I'm only the second head coach in school history. So, the expectations of the program were huge. And I don't know if I really understood it until I got there. But, I think having that pressure and expectation is something, again, that has pushed me to do some really good things in that program so far. But probably the best move. It definitely is the best move I ever made for what I'm trying to do.
Who's the principal at Cedar Creek?
Scott Parker.
Scott Parker. I know Scott Parker.
Yeah.
I played with him at UConn briefly.
Awesome guy. Awesome guy. And a football guy. And again, that really played a huge part in terms of me taking the job. The administration is unbelievable at Cedar Creek, and we prioritize athletics. Obviously, the academic side is huge as well. But we really do prioritize our student athletes, and it's been awesome.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Was Cedar Creek originally with Egg Harbor?
It's in the Greater Egg Harbor School District.
I'm saying it's a newer school. Were they originally combined? Were they going?
It was with Oakcrest and Apsagami. So the Egg Harbor City
Ah.
kids were either going to Oakcrest or Apsagami. So now the third school, and it's all one district. So it's three schools
all one
in
district.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So, so from North Jersey to South Jersey, what were some of the differences you found as far as like football approach to football? Is there any difference? I don't know.
You know, I think the one thing that I definitely, again, coming down here, probably a little bit one-sided as to how I viewed the state of New Jersey. The football in South Jersey, when it comes to public school, is really, really good. And our schedule, you know, when I was at this, I mean, being at Union, being a Group 5 school, I mean, we always played Group 5 programs. Always was how it was. You know, you only play Group 5 programs. In South Jersey, sometimes it's mixed up. Like I'm a Group 3 program. My division itself is Group 5 non-public and Group 4. Like I'm the only Group 3 school in my division.
Yeah.
So when I first got down there, you know, we're playing Holy Spirit, we're playing Winslow, we're playing Atlantic City. So I mean, bigger schools, and I wasn't familiar with that. You know, I think that like the scheduling is very different in South Jersey in comparison to North Jersey. And in North Jersey, you know, when we were at Union, you know, I'm at Union for 6 or 7 years. We played the same teams every year.
Right.
You know, it is completely flipped in South Jersey, where every 2 years there's very few familiar teams that you're playing every 2 years, because they restructure it based on your prior 2 years. So, you know, we've been put in some tough divisions over the last five years. And even before me, we were always scheduling essentially up and punching up. And there's good and bad to that. You know, obviously you want confidence throughout the year. So if you lose a game, sometimes your confidence gets shot. But at the same time, you want to prime yourself and set yourself up for a playoff run. And I think that that's what has made us successful in doing things in the playoffs. Is we're always battle tested throughout the year. So I think scheduling conflict is something that is so different from North Jersey to South Jersey in terms of who you're playing on a year to year.
Like Union, I mean, like you said, like Union, you know what I mean? When you're up there, you're like you said, you're kind of playing the same teams every year, whether it's playoffs or not, right? Like even in the playoffs, you're still seeing the same teams over and over and over again. And it's definitely something that I've adjusted to, or I'm still adjusting to, you know, in coming down here, you know, with the short conference and how they kind of schedule things and whatnot. But like you said, I think that the good to all of that is, like you said, you're battle tested, right? So even though you're a Group 3, you're playing those 4s, you're playing those 5s, you're playing private schools, you know what I mean? Like you're getting punched in the mouth regular season wise to kind of get you battle tested. So now when you do get to those playoffs, you know, you have the ability to make those deep runs, you know, because you've played those teams, you know. Now you might get banged up a week or two because of it, but that also I feel like is a positive sometimes too, because now you're getting some other guys some work that might need whatever, or a younger guy or whatever. At the end of the day, like I just feel like when you're battle tested throughout the season and you're playing those tougher teams, like it just gets you more ready for those playoffs when you really need to make that run, especially now where our playoffs run so much deeper.
You do. And your depth is always going to be tested no matter what. So I think that that's important too. And again, it's high school football is so hard. I feel like if you were to rewind, 20 years, 15 years, like depth wasn't a huge issue in most programs. Now it's a little bit of an issue, because if a good player isn't starting, guess what he does? Kind of packs his bags and leaves. And he transfers, and it's okay. And like, we're going to be okay with that. So depth is something that you really need to create. It is. It's an uphill climb sometimes. And yeah, I mean, in 21, when we ended up, you know, winning the championship, we played 4 state champions throughout that year, which I think was something that was impressive. I think Winslow won the Group 4 title. You know, we played Woodrow Wilson twice, and they won a Group 3 title. Willingboro was in the final. I think Camden ended up getting disqualified that year, but they probably would have made a run in Group 2 too. So we were battle tested through, and then we had to play Somerville in a semifinal, who was 10-1, and then we had to play an undefeated Delsey team in the sectional final. So that was an impressive run. But again, our depth was tested throughout the year, and a couple guys had to step up in key moments. And I thought that was something special. Like you said, Derek, I think that it makes your team a little bit more full circle when other guys can step up and you can plug them in and have them play at a high level.
Talk about the so I think the public schools down there have had a lot of success. You know, you guys have had a lot of success. Winslow, Millville, who am I missing? Glassboro.
Yeah.
So two things come to mind. Number one, I think you touched on one of it. Obviously the scheduling. The public schools have had a lot of success. They're playing up and down competition wise. There's probably not as many parochial schools that are like there are in North Jersey.
No.
And then the other thing you touched on, and I'm curious about. So I'll talk about that first, because I do want to talk about the transfer thing down South Jersey, because that is kind of a I guess it's big in North Jersey and it's probably big in South Jersey. Where we are in Central, it's a little bit. It's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
But first talk about how the public schools have really, have been able to, especially yourselves, have been able to really maintain great success.
The biggest thing, Coach, is what you said, and I was up there. There's so many non-public schools in North Jersey, and it does in turn hurt public schools at times in North Jersey. And again, you're going to get specific years in which North Jersey, I'm sure, is going to have better public school football. Some years it's going to be South Jersey. I'm not sure where it is, but I know this. We are not getting kids plucked away as much by the parochials that we do up north. And it helps us. It helps public school football. Like it really does. I think you look at two really good non-public programs right now that are playing at a high level would be St. Augustine and Holy Spirit. And now Holy Spirit is a school that's 10 minutes down the road from me. So I do have to compete with them. And on top of that, they're in my division. So we play them.
Right. Yeah, you play
them. Yeah. So, they're again, they do a great job there. I think at St. Augustine, they do a great job. But when you look at North Jersey, you're talking about, Middlesex County has a couple non-public schools. Bergen County has a ton of non-public schools. Hudson County has a huge non-public school. And now you're talking about Red Bank Catholic and St. John Vianney. They're also getting some kids from North Jersey. They're getting more North Jersey kids than they would in turn, a kid from Egg Harbor City. They wouldn't come all the way down there to grab a kid. So I think that is a huge influence on some of the programs. And it makes our public school divisions really good and really competitive because these kids are really good. I mean, we scrimmaged Winslow this year, and I played Winslow in the past and had some really good games. They were phenomenal this year. Phenomenal. The year prior, Mainland was phenomenal. The year prior to that, Millville had one of the better teams. Phenomenal. Like, you're talking about teams that have multiple Power 4 kids. And when I was at Union, we scrimmaged St. Joe's Montville. I'll never forget this, actually. When we were in high school, we would always scrimmage Burton Catholic. All right. And we would have competitive scrimmages with them. We would. Like, it wouldn't be complete blowout. And I'll never forget when we played St. Joe's Montville, the way that those non-public schools are formed now, every single kid on that field was a Power 4 kid. And they ran through us that day. And I think we left the field and we said, I don't think we're ever going to scrimmage a team from the Big North anymore. I think that's done. There's just so many very good players. And what I'm saying is the public school teams down south, they kind of have the makeup of that now. If you were to look at Winslow this year and the players that they had, there was a ton of Division I kids. And you rewind in the past couple of years of some of the top South Jersey teams. I mean, you're going to get the same thing. In 21, I was talking about it the other day. In 2021, I had 4 Division I wide receivers playing at the same time. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to have.
And I think it's different too, bro, because like you said, when you're looking at the makeup of it, and we talk about it all the time, obviously, because, all of us are North Jersey guys, right? Like we came from that, and you just see how, each of those schools, get those kids and how their teams are made up and the dynamics of it. And look, I coached at one of them, and it's not a bit, to me, it is what it is, right? It just kind of is. But you coached at, Union High School, a monster Group 5 program with a history of putting guys at the Power 4 level, right? And you still lost kids, right?
Yeah.
So you look at it this way too. Now you make that shift down to South, where there's not a lot, like you said, of those private schools. So even the kids that are leaving, there's still a huge Rolodex of high-level players that are playing at, these public schools, which now just takes this public schools, and now they're just as good and they're able to compete.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge difference. It's just a sheer numbers game. You know what I mean? Like, now look, you had a couple more private schools down South Jersey, and now all of a sudden, now the public school is going to, now the same thing's going to happen, right? But it's not 100%. Like that down there. And we talk about it all the time too. There's a lot, the regionalized school is a bigger thing in South Jersey, where you have high schools pulling from multiple towns, whereas up north, like, one town, one high school is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that adds a little something too, where you get to pull from bigger areas of just, and it comes down to just numbers, right? Like, the more numbers you have, the more opportunity you have to get players that are a higher level. It's just how it works.
Right. No, and I agree with that. And again, it comes down to population too. I mean, you're talking about, there's a ton of land in South Jersey, not a ton of people. So that's why they do kind of pull from all these towns and
right. It makes it almost like it's a private school, in that you have kids coming from different areas, right? Whereas Union High School, everybody lives in Union. You know what I'm saying?
And
like,
honestly, and Derek, you bring that up. I think now, again, at times that could be the biggest hurdle too.
100%.
Because you have kids from one town that grow up together, that play together forever. When you start bringing in kids from different towns that played in different youth programs, that's when it makes it tough to kind of build that continuity. And you got to do that quick. Of course. You got to figure that out quick. So yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. It's a hurdle. It's everything put into one. You got to figure it out. And
right. That's always a pivotal part of the whole puzzle, right? Is when you go to a new high school or a new date, it's look, one of the first questions in an interview, right, is like, oh, how are you going to handle the feeder programs, or how are you going to take this one, and this one, and bring them all together? Exactly. And for you, right, like, you came from, like, you knew what was going on. You had your binder. You knew how to handle that stuff. And now, but it's one thing to say it in the interview, but it's another thing to go and execute it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, you're 100% right.
Is the feeder program, so where are they coming from for you? Is it all-star teams? Is it
no, so
it's all town teams?
It's all town teams. So we we're a magnet school. So we do pull from, like Derek said, we pull from Galloway and Mays Landing, and then our sending district would be Egg Harbor City, and then you got Mullica and Port Republic also. Oh, wow. That would be sending district for us.
And just before you keep going, like, to reference that, like, you have, like, so think about that. All those little spots, still only a Group 3.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Derek, because there's 3 high schools also in the district. So we're all going to pull from other people, but our magnet programs, not just ours, but Absagamis and Oakcrest, it's highly competitive to get into our magnet programs. You have to be in very good academic standing in middle.
It's not just football factory stuff.
No, it's not at all. And we have completely taken that. It's not a part of our district. Athletic ability does not go into play when picking from our magnet programs. But we have Galloway Renegades, Egg Harbor City Crusaders, Mays Landing Lakers, and the Hamilton Knights. Those would be the 4 youth programs that we pull from. And all 4 do a very good job of developing their kids and doing it the right way. And all 3 high schools are trying to dig at them and trying to get as many kids as they can. So again, definitely had a benefit of doing it, but it's not easy to get all the kids that You want into the program, into the school, and that's a hurdle in itself. So, if when I have a youth camp, if I could talk to fifth graders, sixth graders, I tell them, make sure if you ever want to come to school here, make sure you're doing the right thing in the classroom and you're getting good grades, and your teachers are you're respecting your teachers, things along those lines, in order for them to have a chance in getting into our school.
No doubt about it. Really interesting stuff. As far as how kind of developed, so when you came in there, what did you do as far as your plan to really like you said, you already had something really well in place because Coach Watson was well-known coach, legendary coach down there. What did you do in your kind of transition and then building your program as far as weight room, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it was so hard. So I got hired in May, and again, it was during COVID. I didn't get to meet my kids until that last week of July.
Wow.
I remember when you're going through it. It was like, hey, I'm getting this, but it's like, what do I do? Like, how do I handle this? Because there was no book.
Nothing. And I mean, I think that was something. And I was leaning a little bit on Coach Watt at that time, and he would give me tidbits and things to say. But the one thing that always stuck with me that he told me was, at one point he said, listen, there's no manual for this. There's no manual. Like it's going to be some trial and error. And Coach, I started 1-5 in that 2020 year, and again, we're talking about a school that doesn't lose much.
Right.
And it was hard. It really was. It was hard. It was draining on me. It was wearing on me a little bit. And I think I definitely hit a crossroads at some point when we lost that fifth game. I remember we lost to Hamilton High School at home, and we lost 30-0. And what's a little bit funny about it was Hamilton was shut down for 2 weeks. So they didn't practice for 2 weeks. They just stepped on the field and beat us 30-0. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this team just didn't practice for 2 weeks, and they beat us up like that. So there was definitely times of did I do the right thing? It
was a life move for you too, bro.
It was, and
it was a big life move to go down there. You had established a life in Union, and literally it wasn't like, hey, you're just going to take it and live it. Like, you literally up and moved, 2 hours away. And you know what I mean? Like, you changed your whole life situation and during COVID, right? On top of everything going on. And then, and then you start 1-5 and you're like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, this is
I live in Toms River. So, I have an hour ride. And I remember I'll take that hour ride, and there was a ton of self-reflection after starting that. And you talk about weight room. We didn't have any opportunity to do any off-season stuff. So during that time, we didn't have much time to build trust together. I don't know if those kids completely trusted me at that time. And listen, if I were them and a coach steps in and you had just played in the state or won a sectional final the year prior, and this guy comes in and we're 1-5, the fingers are probably going to be pointed toward me, not them. And it probably should have been at that time. Maybe I was doing things wrong. But again, the self-reflection was, I'm either going to go all in right now and I'm going to stop crying about this and we're going to figure this thing out, or after this thing's done, I'll go leave and I'll figure this thing out and I'll be okay with that. We ended up winning our final 2 games that year. We beat Oakcrest and Parseghian. So, we beat the 2 district schools. And what's crazy about that, and I could talk about this forever, we have never lost to either one of those schools. So we have not lost to Oakcrest or Parseghian in school history. So those are always pretty hectic weeks, especially for me. But after that, we won 15 straight games. We didn't lose again until 2022. So we ended up going 13-0 the next year. And I think the biggest thing, Coach, was the offseason program. I was able to work with them. We work extremely, extremely hard in the offseason. I ask a lot out of them. I do. I like to say that I kind of run this thing a little bit like a college program. Things are regimented. And kids are held accountable. It's something where I say, the weight room isn't mandatory, but neither is playing time. So they kind of understand you got to be in the weight room. You got to get going. You got to be together. And when we built that continuity together, I thought that
I like what you said there. That's a really smart way of handling it, because there's always I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish your thought. But, and we've interviewed a lot of people. So,
it resonates with what we've just dealt with. You know what I mean? Like who we just had on certain people where,
the question is always, how do you get guys into the weight room where most of the administrators don't want you to make it mandatory? That's a great way to handle it. Yeah. Weight room isn't mandatory, but neither is playing time. I love that. I'm writing that down.
And here's the thing, Coach. I take attendance every day. I hang the attendance log on the board after every week, so they know. It's posted, and I'm an open door kind of guy, like in terms of parents, and I love having conversations with them, and not to be combative with them, but just to have conversations with them. And again, those are here's the deal: if a kid is not playing and he has 100% in the weight room, maybe they do have a grade, and I'll say, listen, there's things that he has to do on the football field a little bit better. But if a kid isn't playing and he's a 25% guy in the weight room, I'll say, listen, unfortunately, the people ahead of him put a little bit more into this program than they did, than your son did. So those are the things that it's about holding the kids accountable. And I think that they want that. They want structure. Kids want structure. And as much as they kind of combat it sometimes, and they want to, if you could put a structured program together, they're going to follow it and they're going to understand it. My group has done an unbelievable job in doing that. So it really was the biggest piece, I think, in terms of getting this thing back in the right direction. I mean, that season was great. And then, we've doubled up and done some really good things since then too. So I think we're going to continue to just progress in the right direction. And I have a really talented group right now that I'm excited to get to work with. We should have got to work today, but we had a snow day, but tomorrow we'll start kicking this thing into high gear.
That's you guys have a lot of snow already, huh?
Yeah, we have a decent amount.
We're not getting shit. They're getting.
I have it's snowing now, but it's not snowing by you right now, Derek.
Yeah, it is, but it's not gonna. We ain't getting what they're getting. Those guys down there are gonna get.
Yeah, we got a lot today.
You got a lot. Okay, yeah.
We're right on the it's right there. It's on that fridge right there, because our guys were talking about this morning. We had our banquet yesterday, and it was hey, 5. We're back to 5:30s tomorrow morning. Guys are jazzed, but we're gonna have a snow day. You ain't gonna have a snow day, dude. You'll be there. Believe me. If anything, you'll be all right. So they were all jazzed about that. But it's listen, man. Like I said, it's one of those things too. And look. We played for a guy whose the structure was the structure at Montclair State, and it was established for us. Look, and we both came from prominent high school programs as well. You knew what you were getting into, you knew how things were supposed to be, and when you won, it was done this way, and when we didn't win, it was done that way, right? So you had that mold going into it. It's just a matter of putting your own spin on it, and then getting those guys to buy into your way. And like I said, there is so much more that happens in the off season that a lot of high school teams just really don't. I don't know if they really grasp how much and how pivotal that is, because it's not mandatory to be there and do that. Right. And the more you can squeeze into that summer is kind of everything you have. But when you get a group that buys into it on the regular, even with guys playing multiple sports, right? Because you're always pushing multiple sports, but still, football still needs to resonate, and there still needs to be that level of accountability even in the off season. And when you get all of that working, now you just continue cooking with gas. And I think that's the most important part. A lot of guys kind of miss out on that because, maybe they're coaching other sports or maybe they're doing other things. You know what I mean? Right. So I think that's one of the things, the biggest difference from going from North Jersey coaching to down here was that, a lot of guys up north, that was all they did. And football was it, right? Whereas you came down here and you started guys when it was the off season or something, they kind of ventured away. It was almost more of a hobby-ish type gig rather than no, this is all in all the time if you want to be great. You know what I mean? Right. So I think that's something you've grasped. And I think the kids have bought into it because like you said, they want structure.
They do. And I mean, I've been asked to coach, other sports. I have a baseball background. I've been asked, and as much as I would love to do it, I'm like wired to be with my kids all the time. Like I really am.
Yeah.
And it's not something that, I'm going to sit up here and say I agree with or disagree with, but football is 12 months now for these high school kids, man. Like they got to be in the weight room. They got to be doing something. And even my off-season kids live with me in the morning. So I'll get my other athlete, my multi-athletes, they'll live with me in the morning. And after school, my off-season athletes will live too. So, I mean, it's turned into something where if you're not doing it, someone else is. And I never want to be in that situation. I would like to be the most prepared person that we can be. And I think that, again, I think every coach is always peaking because with social media, like, and I do it too. I'm guilty of it. Teams are filming their workouts and stuff. You're always like looking like which team is doing this, which team is doing that. But if you're just hyper focused on your group and what you're doing, I think that you'll be fine and you'll get your guys going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Being able, it's great that you have guys that really, you've got that program humming and they're dedicated to working out and they want to be there. So the transfer thing is down in South Jersey is like become a little bit. I don't know if it affects you at all, but but it's been a hot topic. In particular, like Glassboro, Hamilton, the Hamilton running back goes to Glassboro. Glassboro wins the championship. I'm sure it's happened. He's just a higher profile kid. I'm sure there's other kids, obviously,
right,
at different schools. Is that become like a thing that happens a lot? Like, or are people reaching? I don't know how that works down there. Especially in public school, it's always confusing me how that works in public school because of when you have to pick up and move. But I don't really know. So
I think it's all situation based.
Okay.
I don't know what every player's situation is. I don't want to throw dirt on a kid's name for leaving. If there was I think the biggest thing that I think that the perception would be a kid's transferring because he's crying about playing time or he doesn't like the coach, or he's transferring because he doesn't think that the kids around him are good enough and he wants to go to another program. I think that that's the easiest perception for everyone to take. And I'm sure it does happen. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't. I'm sure it does happen, but I think it's going to be all situation based. I'm not going to sit here and say I agree with it. I think, as a public school coach, you're going to get what you get, and you got to try to build a culture that's going to keep you successful, to have sustained success. And some years it's going to work really good, and some years you're going to have a down year, and you're going to live with that, and you're going to get better from it. You're going to learn. But sure, I mean, coach, it's running rampant everywhere now. Like it is. Like, I mean, there's so much I could say about it, but I think that every situation is going to be different. So I don't want to, say something bad about a kid that, maybe.
No, it's not about it. It's not about a kid. It's about,
right.
Just like in general.
Coach, no, I know. And I get it. Like, and here's the deal. When I was playing in high school, it didn't really happen. You kind of knew who you were geared up to play every year. But now it isn't like that. It's not.
Does that affect your depth at all? Like
100%. 100%. And again, I haven't had many
issue with it.
But it does. It definitely affects depth. I know that, and I think that that's every coach's worry.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Because here's the deal: you need really good second team players in order to. If you want to go on a 14-game season, you're going to need second and sometimes 13 players that are going to be able to step in and do it.
You need guys to play scout who can actually play.
You do. And Derek, I didn't even touch upon that, but that is so true. It's true. You need a good scout team, And
look, the sport is hard. It's physical. Guys get banged up. Like, you just need bodies, especially look. And for me, like being out of Group 3, like we are, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are right on that fringe line where if you lose enough kids or you get banged up enough, like, dude, you're done. Like, it's just kind of how it works, right? So the more depth you can build, the more guys, the more bodies. Like, you just need that. Especially, I feel like Group 3 is right on that cutoff of where, you know what I mean? Like, you can lose enough guys to like crush a season, right? If that actually happens. Group 4, like, yeah, you lose you lose those certain guys, then you're really, but like, you can kind of get through it because you have just more numbers, right? It's just, to me, it always comes back to a numbers game. It always comes back to a depth thing. You know, if you lose the you know, a certain amount, like, you're in trouble, dude. And it just, the program itself, like, you know, how you see it. And especially for you, who as a Group 3 plays 4s, 5s, private schools, like, you know, after you play Holy Spirit, you're going to be banged up, dude. Like, you need depth so those guys can help out that next week, right? And kind of balance it out. It's just really, it's just part of it, you know? It really is. Depth is huge.
And I think that's Coach, when you bring it up, I do believe that's the biggest, you know, question mark. You know, I'm in the benefit of having 60 to 65 kids in my program, freshman to senior, which is great. I mean, it's not, you know, it's funny when we played Woodrow Wilson in 21 in the regional final, in the sectional final, they played Rumson Fairhaven and beat them. And Rumson is now a Group 2 school, but there's like 120 kids on there.
Oh yeah, the rosters.
They are 20. They are 20. 20 to 20, bro. 20 to 20. Purple helmets all over the place.
I'll never forget watching film of that game because Woodrow was a little bit depleted, and Woodrow put it on him a little bit that night. But Woodrow had, like, you know, 13 or 14 kids on their sideline, and like you said, there goes 20 of Rumson kids, and
purple everywhere, dude.
It's program based. It's not always group based. It's program based as to how many numbers you have, but we are in the bet. We've done a really good job of getting kids in and keeping them interested in what we're doing and making sure they're all part of what we're doing in building this. And
yeah,
you know,
Rumps is a different situation too because they have the ability to open and roll and so that I'm sure is helpful, and it's a mega high academic school for a public school in probably an area where there's not as many mega high public schools, you know, like that. So they kind of they have a unique spot. I think they've leveraged it very, very well. Very, very well. And it's just because I live in Lincroft and we're two towns over from it, you know, so I know it well. You know, what's interesting too. So like Utappan, because they're Group 3, I think similar to you guys are. Where I've been an analyst for them for the last 4 years, although I honestly this year I didn't do much. But the 3 years before that I did a lot with them, and then I coached with them in I think 2016. They're great guys, and I've coached with their DC multiple times at different places. What I noticed was they always did a great job. Like I heard you mention that you have 60 to 70 kids, freshmen to seniors. I think they're like the same thing. Like they basically roll with like 40 kids on varsity, right? And depth is somewhat of an issue, but what you do with your training program is it mirrors to me a lot what they do. Like they focus on that off-season program. The kids do multiple sports. They make sure no matter if they do multiple sports or they're just football guys, they get their, they get all the working out they need to do. It's not, I don't think they have an unbelievable weight room. It's just that they get after it. And it's such a big part of their program that it enables the fact that even if they're rolling with 40, those 40 are like Spartans, you know what I mean? Just like those are 40 Spartans. And obviously it's usually 20 freshmen or whatever you have, but those guys are 40 Spartans. They're smart in how they handle it. And it's enabled them to be very, very, very successful, obviously. So,
I mean, what we, and I think as coaches, we all try to get our kids to understand this. During a game week, you try to up the intensity in practice to almost match what a game is. So they're prepared to have that intensity. My intensity in the weight room, I would like to match in the game the same way. And I think that that's something that, daily I battle with. Like, how do I amp the intensity in this room to match where they would be at in a game? And some days I'm successful with it. Some days they're a little bit dead and they're dragging, and it happens. But if you could try to up the intensity in what you're doing in your offseason program and try to switch things up from time to time. And I know that you guys had Joey on LaSalle. What Joey used to do at Woodbridge was on a Friday, make it a competition Friday in the offseason. I thought that was pretty sharp. And that's something that I think that, I'm going to use. And I usually do competition Wednesdays now. And it's something where we are competing a little bit. They get that energy of competing. And it's important. It's important. And again, take the strength and the conditioning out of it. Those kids are in the room together and they're working together and they're pushing each other together and they're holding each other accountable together. I think it's the most essential part of a football program is getting the work in the off season together. It's truly to me, that's what sets the tone. And you got, as a coach, you got to be able to buy into that too.
And like I said, it's really hard in high school to do that, dude, right? Because you got guys, like you said, that aren't in the weight room, they're doing this. And like you said, you can't, it's really hard to, make them be there, right? So you have to create that, and look, it's really hard. It's not like college where we got 5:30 a.m. mat drills or you got this, right? And all the team is there and all that other kind of stuff. Like there's so many outside factors for high school football off season to kind of, and hurdles to kind of, and hoops to jump through to make that happen.
Right.
But when you get it and when they realize how much it really pushes everything along, that's when you can really, really start to step the game up. And that's when your program is successful year after year after year, because that standard has been set and that's the expectation. Right. But I think the one thing you said that's great is, and it's really something I think all of us battle with, is how do we mimic practice and game day in the off season to create that juice that's got to be flowing for them to feel it, to push them to do it again and do it again and do it again and make them want to come back. And like you said, talking like with the guys that we have and whatnot, like what works for some might not work for others.
100%.
You know what I mean? 100%. I think that's a huge piece too. You got to know your kids. You got to know what buttons to push and when to push them. And, I think that's part of it too. You got to figure that all out for your team specific.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's not like any way that I say is the right way. It's a different way. And again, I think for me, like I've been able to take so many different coaches that I've worked under, or I worked with, and have kind of made it into one as to where I view my program. And obviously Coach G and Coach O were so influential to me and in preparation. I mean, I think, I can remember the Sundays that we would have to do during, I worked there for 3 weeks. I'm sorry, 3 years, but,
dude,
we get in at 6 a.m. and we would be out by 7 p.m. and,
all day.
Very, very tedious in what they did, but you have to be. And I think that's something that you learn as a coach. I mean, listen, when a kid makes a mistake, you may be screaming at the kid because you think it's, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then you have to stop yourself and think like, wait a minute, did I tell him the rule on that? Like, it's like, I don't know, like something as simple as, you punt the ball to the 3-yard line, the kid fields it, gets tackled inside the 5 when he should have let it bounce into the end zone. And you're screaming at him, but then you're like, maybe I didn't give him an 11-yard rule. Maybe I didn't talk to him about that. But what I know is this: when I learned at Montclair State, all the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted, and it was like that all the time. And that's how I learned through them. And then, listen, Derek, you played for him, but I learned under Todd so much and Agresta, and he was someone who, as a player, he like as an offensive guy, especially as a quarterback, I didn't have much interaction with him, and the only interaction I did was him screaming in my face. So when I went down into the basement and I did start learning under him,
shit right, bro.
So when I did learn under him, I was anticipating getting that same guy, but what he did was honestly take me under his wing and teach me things. And he's probably the most prepared coach I've ever worked under.
Ever.
And he taught me so much about the defensive side of the ball and things that I never even knew. I got to work alongside Jay Scott. Jay was such a huge piece of me coaching, and I worked with him for a long time, and we worked together at Montclair State, we worked together at Union, and he was someone that's been so important to me. I worked under Lou Grasso, who ran a program the right way and always elevated a program and did things the right way, and learning from Coach Watson, learning from my assistant coaches who learned under Coach Watson. Like, it's everything mixed into one that I'm able to do. And like you said, man, sometimes I hear or see something that I like. Sometimes I hear or see something that I don't like. And I'm going to use some things. I'm not going to use some things. Whatever works for your program is going to work. But I was blessed to work around so many gifted football coaches that have taught me so much throughout these years I'm still growing, obviously, like I am, and I'm still learning. And it's been an awesome ride. This game has been so much to me. It really has.
Yeah, it gives you the foundation to be able to go into your tool shed and grab the tools you need for each situation, which is really, really important. Because it's constantly, the game's constant. Amazingly, the game constantly changes. It's so interesting to me in football, like, because like the actual game, a lot of it comes down to blocking and tackling and in the fundamentals. But everything around it, from scheme to whether they allow transfers or don't allow, everything around it is like changing all the time. But actually on the field, no matter what scheme you're running, like if your team can block, tackle, catch, and run, you're probably in good shape.
Win the line of scrimmage, you'll be in good shape.
Buddy.
That's what it comes
down
to.
About
Win the line of scrimmage, you'll be in good shape.
No doubt. Well, Coach, it's been great having you on. I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time. Much continued success. You're doing a fantastic job down there, and it's a highly competitive area where you are. South Jersey's really, really, I would say,
we talk about it all the time, dude.
It's improved the most, I would say, in the state football wise of any area in New Jersey, right? Like, North Jersey's always been obviously very good. It's just where the talent moves and shifts. But South Jersey, like, really has emerged with lots of talent and continuing every year to get more and more talent down there. Maybe it's because more people are moving down there. I don't know. It could be. But whatever the reason is, it's really, really been excellent. Really, 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 really a ton of great players down there and great coaches, and it's really cool to see. So, we wish you the best, and we'll see you soon. I'm sure you'll talk to Derek quite often. We'll have you back on.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Have a great day. Bye. All right, that was great. There was something I wanted to ask you, but now I forgot. What was it? Doggone it. Oh man, I don't know. Maybe I'll remember it offline.
I'm sure you'll remember it.
Yeah, it was something I had to ask you, and I forgot what it was. But no, it was great. It's a great episode. It was great having Coach. Coach really fantastic amount of knowledge. He's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, dude. He's so young.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he was your age, I'm guessing.
Younger. No, he's like 4 or 5. He might be 4 or 5 years younger than me, so he might only be 33.
Okay. Wow.
Maybe like 34, maybe a little bit, maybe 34. But I like I said, I think it's like underrated how much like he really grasped like being a quarterback, spending 1 year at Montclair State as like helping out with the offensive side, and then going to the defensive side. You know what I mean? Right. To learn how to coach basically, and then go back to the offense. Like he'll tell you all the time, like he learned so much more coaching on the opposite side of the ball from whatever he was used to playing. Right? We've had a lot of guys reference stuff like that. Like that just adds a whole different viewpoint. What's that?
When you coach defense and then you come over back to offense, I think that's you're like,
oh, this is easy. You're like,
yeah.
They can't cover this. Like, they can't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
if defensive guys only stay on that side, they don't really realize that on offense, like you realize, and once you coach on defense, you realize there's only so many things the defense can really do for the most part.
And I can come up with answers.
How you window dress it? I don't care how you window dress. there's only so many things. Like that's why I would say, like, people are like, oh, cover 6 is different than cover 3. But there's still 3 guys up top. Okay, so I get it. You go quarter, half. I get it. When this guy's rolled down. My concern for my quarterback is the middle of the field open or closed? At the
end of the day, you got to figure out whatever happens before I snap, and you're going to tell me, right? Like at some point, you're going to tell me.
You have to tell me. If you don't tell me,
you don't have to, but okay.
I mean, like a delay blitz is very good, and when you have teams that can do it, it's obviously effective. And in the NFL, you probably can do it a little bit more, and college because the kids are so fast. Like you could delay and get there still. In high school,
come on.
Only your best player in your whole team.
And I know exactly which one of your players can and can't.
The only guy can do it. Right. There's one guy that can do it. He's the fastest, most athletic guy.
Well, that's why I thought talking to Gibbs last week was such a big thing. Like knowing where that guy is, okay, but now I don't know where the hell he is. That adds a little bit
I thought that was very, very interesting because it's in defense. I think that's the thing that you're trying to figure out is how can I do something that they have no way to expect it, which is the thing that offenses in general look at defenses. Like I said, like for the most part, this is what they're going to do. So if you figure out something like that 3 safety defense and which really is like, if I were to like switch the name of it, I would basically call it like, it's almost like the free rover defense. You know what I mean? Like this guy dictates everything, but it's no matter what you call it, it makes it a little more difficult because you're trying to find out where the best player is, and he's not lining up in the same spot all the time, and he's all over the place, and you're like, that's really a headache for offenses because
100%
he sacked you from the right last time, and now he sacked you from the left, and you're like,
now he's coming from where? Where is he lined up now? Like, okay, we're just gonna read him. We're gonna read him. Like, well, where is he? I don't even know where he is.
Almost no high school QBs, unless they really, really are exceptional. You could teach him, find where this guy is, and he's going to try and find where he is. But in the heat of battle, and clock's ticking down, and all that kind of stuff, it's harder to do.
And that ain't something like, hey, it's halftime, let's make this adjustment. Like you're going to be able to just put it in there and figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's if guys even adjust, for God's sakes.
No doubt. All right, let me roll. We'll
be good.
I got to call this manic